The transport ship rattled as it descended through HFY's upper atmosphere, its hull groaning like a wounded animal. Inside, Lieutenant Cara Rio sat apart from the others, checking her gear with methodical calm. Her fingers worked quickly, tightening straps, adjusting weight distribution, dipping her fingertips into a small tin of mud before swiping a practice line across her cheekbone. Across the dimly lit hold, alien eyes watched her with mixture of curiosity and disdain. The other members of the squad, a patchwork of hired muscle from across the galaxy, were clad in sleek, reflective armor bristling with tech. Kara's gear looked like it belonged in a museum. Matte black tactical cloth, a carbon blade she strapped to her thigh, a bundle of synthetic leaves woven into her shoulder plate. "Hey, Earth Girl," came a gravelly voice. It belonged to Drelk, a reptilian marksman with scales the color of rusted metal. He leaned against the bulkhead, cleaning his plasma rifle like it was a religious relic. "You forget the rest of your gear? Or did you just crawl out of a swamp and call it a day?" There was a ripple of laughter, mostly from Thisik, the insectoid comm specialist whose voice clicked and buzzed even to the translator. Kara didn't respond. She didn't need to. The silence always lasted longer when she stared. Commander Zarn cleared his throat, interrupting the laughter. "We're not here to bond. We're here because a recon drone picked up movement near Grid Echo 7. The stolen data core is in that zone. Resistance expected. Minimal visibility. High humidity. Perfect conditions for complications." Kara allowed herself a faint smirk. Perfect conditions. Indeed. Zarn's voice sharpened. "We deploy in 20. Rios, you'll scout ahead." Drelk snorted. "She'll get eaten by the trees before we even drop." Kara turned her head slowly. Her voice was calm, controlled. "You'll hear me scream, right? Isn't that the protocol?" More chuckles, but not from Zarn. His heavy brow ridge twitched, betraying a flicker of unease. He didn't like her. He didn't trust her. But he knew what she was. She was the best they had for this terrain. The ship landed with a shudder that knocked a few weapons loose from racks. The ramp hissed open, revealing a wall of green, thick vines, curling branches, a soup of humidity and spores that clung to the lungs. The sounds were immediate. Chittering calls, the low growl of something unseen, leaves rustling where no wind should be. Drelk stepped back from the threshold. "Ugh, this place reeks." "To you, maybe," Kara muttered. She stepped into the jungle without hesitation, swallowed by the foliage in seconds. They watched her disappear. Crazy human. Thisik buzzed, but Zarn's eyes lingered on the green, narrowing. "Marker position. We follow in 5. Kara moved like water over stone, silent, fluid, inevitable. Her boots made no sound. Her skin, now streaked with mud and chlorophyll, blended perfectly with the dense vegetation. Every breath was measured, every step calculated. She wasn't moving through the jungle. She was the jungle. She checked her handheld scanner, a compact device more analog than digital, by design. EM interference in the region was too strong for high-tech trackers, but her eyes were better anyway. She crouched at a patch of broken underbrush, fingertips brushing the soil. Tracks, not theirs. A pattern of boot prints, slightly wider than human. Recent. Weight distribution indicated haste, uneven pressure. Someone was running. She tapped her earpiece. Movement ahead. At least 3. Looks like a patrol. Likely enemy. A moment of static. Then Zarn's voice replied. "Coordinates. North by northwest, 100 meters from my position." "Copy. Hold position. We'll regroup." "No," Kara said. "They're moving fast. I'll tail them." "Negative, Lieutenant." But she'd already cut the channel. Back with the squad, Zarn exhaled sharply. She's disobeying orders. Drake chuckled. She's probably chasing shadows. She has instincts, Zarn muttered, mostly to himself. Just not protocol. They advanced anyway, sweeping to the jungle like a blade through soup, loud, clumsy, visible. Vines snapped underfoot, leaves tore from branches, and the shine of their armor glinted like a beacon in the canopy-filtered light. Within minutes, the jungle began to close in behind them. Sound vanished. The temperature rose. Their suits struggled to compensate. Drake paused, glancing around. Something's off. Thysic buzz agreement. Comm interference increasing. I cannot raise orbit. Then the gunfire started. It came from everywhere, short bursts, precise, clinical. Red-hot bolts streaked through the trees, cutting down foliage and flesh alike. One of the squad members, a bulky war beast named Gron, didn't even have time to scream before a plasma round tore through his chest plate. Panic set in. Return fire sprayed into brush, wild and ineffective. Someone yelled a retreat order, but the comms were dead. They scattered. In the confusion, no one noticed Kara had reappeared in the trees above, her form barely visible through a veil of branches and shadow. Her eyes tracked everything. Her breathing never changed. She could have helped, but she didn't. Not yet. When the remaining squad regrouped in a shallow depression, down to 5 from 9, they were drenched in sweat and fear. Where the hell is she? Drake growled. We're down half a team, and she's probably halfway to the exfil. Or she's dead, Thysic offered flatly. But Zarn wasn't convinced. He'd seen the look in her eyes, that unblinking, predatory calm. He activated his wrist scanner and tried to ping her locator beacon. Nothing, just static. He turned toward the trees, scanning the green wall of silence. She's still out there. And somewhere, not far away, Kara crouched beside the cooling corpse of one of their attackers. She retrieved a small data tag from his belt and slipped it into her pouch. Her eyes flicked upward as a branch creaked in the windless air. She didn't move. She didn't speak. But in her mind, the hunt had already begun. The squad didn't know it yet, but the jungle had chosen sides. And it had chosen her. Branches snapped under armored boots. Steam hissed from vents in the squad suits as they struggled to adjust to the relentless humidity. Even without enemy fire, the jungle of Mkai 7 was a battlefield. Insects the size of fists buzzed around their helmets. Vines snagged weapons. Visibility was barely 10 meters. Every movement was a fight against nature itself. Still no sign of Rios, Drake muttered, swatting at a vine like it had insulted him. Probably got herself swallowed by one of those carnivorous trees. She's more likely following patrols she spotted, Zarn replied, eyes flicking from the map overlaid to the dense canopy above. Which means she's already ahead of us. Right, Thysic hissed? Because creeping around the mud is a smart tactic when we have thermal sensors. Which aren't working, Zarn snapped, because this whole jungle is saturated with thermal interference. Try using your eyes. Drake grunted. Still don't trust her. You don't have to trust her, Zarn said coldly. Just survive long enough to see if she brings back anything useful. They pushed deeper, unaware that something watched them from the trees. Silent, patient, measuring each of their movements. Kara crouched on a thick branch, nearly invisible. Her face was streaked with new patterns of mud and green spores, blending with the bark. Below, the squad stumbled like a herd of fluorescent animals through the underbrush, each step louder than the last. They were loud. They were obvious. They were bait. She shifted her attention beyond them, toward the east, where she'd trailed the enemy patrol. She disabled one of their scouts with a silent blade to the throat and tagged the others with motion-sensitive flares. They were drawing close now. She could feel in the sudden hush, the way birds cease their calls, the subtle vibration in the leaves. Her hand found the hilt of her blade. It was about to begin. The first shot came from the tree-lean. A brilliant lance of blue plasma caught Soren, the squad's heavy gunner, square in the shoulder. He dropped with a pained roar, his weapon spinning away into the foliage. "Cover!" Zarn shouted. Too late. More plasma bolts sizzled through the trees, carving spirals of steam in the damp air. The jungle erupted into chaos. Yells, curses, the whine of returning fire. But the enemy was disciplined. Their shots were precise, controlled. The squad's return fire hit only trees. Kara watched from above, her expression unreadable. The enemies had taken high ground, masked by the canopy. It was a tactician's ambush, not a bandit's. Thisik screamed as a bolt clipped aside, sending him spinning into a patch of razor vine. Drelk fired blindly into trees, growling curses in his native tongue. Zarn kept him moving, dragging Soren by his arm, yelling coordinates, trying to keep order. But it was like shouting into a hurricane. The jungle swallowed his voice whole. Then, in a flash of movement, Kara was gone, slipping from the tree into the undergrowth like a shadow returning home. The squad retreated to a clearing bordered by fallen logs and dense, unnatural ferns. Zarn rolled Soren into cover and did a quick field dressing with supplies that hissed and spat as they sealed the wound. "Thisik, status?" "Still alive," came the clip reply. "Barely." "Drelk." The marksman paced the edge of the clearing like a caged animal, weapon raised, eyes scanning. "Haven't seen them since we pulled back. They stopped shooting. Watching us now, probably." "Where's Rios?" Thisik asked. "Dead." Drelk growled. "Or she ran." "I'd bet either." Zarn didn't answer. Instead, he tapped into his squad's local channel. "Rios. Respond. Status." "Static." He adjusted the frequency, toggled the encryption. "Lieutenant Rios, this is Commander Zarn. We've been hit. 2 down. If you're alive, respond." Still nothing. "She's gone." Thisik buzzed. "Coward." But Zarn shook his head. "No, she wouldn't run." "How would you know?" Drelk barked. "Because if she had," Zarn replied, voice low, "we'd all be dead already." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Kara crouched 100 meters away, watching the clearing through the scope of a scavenged enemy rifle. The squad was rattled, afraid, exposed. But she couldn't reveal herself. Not yet. She needed to know more. Why had the enemy pulled back? Why didn't they push the kill? Then she saw it. Movement behind the trees. Not an enemy. A drone, light, quiet, shaped like a dragonfly but with an unmistakable flicker of surveillance optics. The enemy had let them live. Not out of mercy, but because they were being watched, studied, tracked. She exhaled and marked its position on her mental map. Then she turned her attention back to the jungle. In the clearing, Drelk sat on a stump, muttering under his breath, his claws tightening around his rifle grip. Thisik worked to repair his damaged comm array with shaking limbs. Zarn stood at the edge of the clearing, staring into the brush like he expected it to answer him. It did. A sound, subtle and sharp, a click from his earpiece. He tapped it. "Repeat that." There was silence for a breath, and then a voice. Calm, flat, unmistakably human. "Next time I say wait, you wait." Zarn froze. "Rios." No reply. Drelk leapt up. "Where is she?" Zarn held up a hand. "Lieutenant, what's your position?" Silence again. But from somewhere in the foliage, just at the edge of their vision, a single figure moved. A blur of green and brown, gone before they could focus. Drelk raised his weapon. "Was that her?" Thisik hissed. "I don't know. I didn't see." Zarn interrupted. "It was her." "How do you know?" "Because we're still alive," Zarn said. "And someone out there is killing them faster than we can count." In the distance, a sharp scream echoed through the trees, short, sudden, and human. Then another. The jungle swallowed the sound, and Kara Rios moved unseen 1 step ahead. Kara's blade slid to the final inch of foliage without a sound. Beneath her, 2 enemy scouts whispered in their native tongue, oblivious to death perched just above. She hung suspended from a branch, weight distributed across fiber-thin lines of synthetic silk she planted hours before. Her breath was still, her heartbeat slow and steady. She released the tension in her wrist and dropped silently behind them, One blade flashed, quick, clean, a line drawn across the throat. The other turned, too late. Her knee connected with his chest. His weapon clattered to the soil. She silenced him with a swift thrust, caught his body, and lowered it gently to the ground. Two more ghosts for the jungle to swallow. She crouched beside them, checking for intel, a data chip embedded in one scout's wrist. She pried it free and pocketed it. Their uniforms were marked with a crimson fawn insignia, mercenaries, well-paid and well-trained, not jungle fighters. Their formation was too rigid, too dependent on their tech. She'd already taken out 5. There would be more. She rose and vanished into the brush, soundless once again. Back in the clearing, Zarn stared at the horizon, where distant flashes of light burst through the trees like heat lightning. Each one came with a muffled scream or a crash of falling bodies. It wasn't the enemy dying, not all of them. Some of the screams were their own. Drelk paced nearby, his claws twitching. I don't like this. They're picking us off. We can't even see them. Thisic's mandibles clicked rapidly. It is the human. It must be. She's not our enemy, Zarn said more to himself than them. No. Drelk scoffed. Then why hasn't she come back? Why is she hiding like a predator? Because that's exactly what she is. The others stared. Zarn didn't look at them. His gaze was fixed on the shadows at the edge of the clearing, where the jungle seemed to lean in closer with every passing minute. She's doing what she was trained to do, he continued. What the rest of us mocked her for. Drelk's lips curled. You're saying she planned this? No, but she adapted faster than the rest of us. Another flash lit the canopy. Another scream. Far away, Kara moved through the trees like a whisper between leaves. She marked traps along her route. Loops of wire redirected branches, pressure-triggered sonic bursts. The jungle was her ally. It offered endless tools if you knew how to listen. She stopped in a shallow ravine where a squad of enemies moved below. 6 strong, weapons ready. One of them glanced up, then fell with a dart in his eye. Before the others could react, smoke flooded the ravine, thick and bitter. Panic shouts filled the air. Kara dropped in from above. She used the smoke to her advantage, disarming one, crippling another. A rifle misfired. A scream was cut off. Her blade danced through confusion like a phantom. When the haze cleared, only she remained standing. She left one alive, groaning in the mud, eyes wide with terror. Tell them, she whispered, crouching beside him. Tell them who's hunting them. Then she was gone again, as if the jungle had opened its mouth and swallowed her whole. Back at the makeshift camp, Zarn updated his tactical pad. The squad's numbers had dropped to 3. Soren was unconscious from blood loss. Thisik was injured. Drelk was barely holding his composure. The jungle wasn't just killing them. It was unmaking them, stripping away their armor, their bravado, their illusions of superiority. He pinged Kara again, more out of duty than hope. Static answered him. But this time, the silence was broken by a new voice on the comm, low, deliberate, filtered through a scrambled codec. I've located the enemy camp, Kara said. Zarn straightened. Say again. They've set up 2 clicks north of your position. Light perimeter. Focused inward. No sign they expect retaliation. You sure? I watched them eat, she said. They've gotten comfortable. And you? She paused. Not yet. Drelk pushed closer to the comms unit. You could have told us sooner. I need you sooner. The statement hung in the air like a blade poised above the neck. I'm bringing the fight to them, Kara continued. You stay put. Secure the wounded. If I don't come back in 2 hours, find a way to burn this jungle to the ground. Then the channel cut. Drelk spat on the ground. She's insane. No, Zarn said. She's efficient. The alien turned to him, eyes narrowed. You really think she can take on an entire camp alone? Zarn looked up at the sky, barely visible through the strangling canopy. I think we've already seen what she can do with half a blade and a handful of mud. Deep in the jungle, Kara slipped through the undergrowth toward the enemy encampment. She moved low, slow, blending into the textures and rhythms of the forest. Every breath she took tasted of damp earth and anticipation. Every movement was calculated. She reached the ridge and crawled to the edge, peering down. Floodlights cast harsh angles over a clearing below, illuminating a small prefab base surrounded by crates and weapon racks. 2 gun turrets faced outward, their arcs wide but predictable. Guards strolled lazily between posts, helmets unfastened, weapons slung low. They were off duty in their minds. She counted 12, maybe more inside. She smiled. This was what she had trained for. Operations no one else wanted. Conditions no one else survived. They'd called her primitive, weak, laughable. Now they were bleeding into the moss, and she hadn't even drawn attention to herself yet. Kara backed away from the ridge, mapping her approach, selecting entry points, paths of retreat, explosive placements. Every decision folded into the next with predatory precision. She whispered into her comm, barely audible, 2 hours, and then she disappeared into green. The first explosion didn't come from the ridge, but from beneath the enemy's ammo crates, planted where no sentry thought to look. Fire rolled across the clearing in a wave of orange and pressure, toppling guards and shattering their complacency in an instant. Screams followed, shouts of confusion, orders barked in panic. Floodlights swung wildly, carving harsh white arcs through the smoke. But the jungle gave nothing back. No answer, no shape, only chaos. Kara moved within the smoke, a shadow among silhouettes. She struck from the dark, never seen. A blade through the chest, a wire around the throat. One by one they fell until the perimeter was a scattering of bodies and broken gear. Inside the central structure, alarm screamed. A commander shouted into a comlink, spitting for reinforcements that wouldn't come. Static answered him. Kara had jammed their channels hours ago. 2 soldiers burst from the side of the prefab and stumbled directly into a tripwire. A concussive flash sent them sprawling. One didn't rise. From a vantage point above, Kara waited, heart steady, eyes cold. The enemy was finally afraid, not of an army, not of drones or tanks, of a single woman. She moved again, sprinting low into the heart of the camp. Fire reflected off her skin like dancing specters. Her fingers found the charge on the supply depot, timed, not remote. No need to give them the satisfaction of thinking they could stop it. The clock was ticking now, and every second brought her closer to the end. Inside the structure, 3 enemies fortified the command room. She breached it through the ceiling, dropping silently, knees flexed, blade out. One turned, too slow. The blade took him. The second raised a weapon, caught a blade to the hand, and collapsed, howling. The last backed away, pleading in broken trade tongue. She said nothing. He raised his hands. She left him breathing, but barely, a lesson carved into flesh. Fear is earned. She pulled the data core from the console, tucked it into her chest rig, and turned for the exit just as the depot began its countdown. Outside, fire had taken hold. The jungle fed on the chaos, flames crawling up trees like eager children. Heat shimmered across the clearing. Kara dashed between wreckage and debris, her skin streaked with ash and blood. She didn't stumble, didn't pause. At the edge of the camp, she glanced back once. The flames framed her silhouette like a war goddess painted in motion. Then she vanished. The blast followed her a minute later, roaring skyward in a shockwave of sound and fury. Birds erupted from the canopy. Trees bent with the force. And then silence again. Back at the squad's makeshift position, the others had seen the column of fire rise. Drelk stared, awestruck. She did it, Thisik murmured, his voice tinged with something bordering reverence. Zarn didn't speak. He kept his eyes on the tree line, waiting. Minutes passed. Then Kara emerged, streaked in soot and blood, her gear half burned, but her stride unbroken. She tossed the data core to Zarn without a word. He caught it, fingers trembling. "That's your evidence," she said. "Coordinates, manifests, merc contracts. Everything you need to pin this operation to your command council." Drelk's mouth opened, then closed again. For once, he had nothing to say. "You did that alone?" Thisik asked quietly. "No," Kara said, and gestured to the jungle around them. "I had help. She sat beside the still unconscious Soren and began checking his vitals with calm precision. Zarn looked down at the core, then at her. We'll be extraction ready by nightfall. I'm not going with you, she said, not looking up. Drelk stepped forward. What do you mean? I'm staying, she replied. There's more out here. More camps. More mercs. They're not expecting anyone to come for them. That makes them vulnerable. You're not obligated. Zarn began. Kara stood. It's not about obligation. It's about efficacy. I can do more damage here than I ever could behind a desk filing mission reports. For a moment, no one argued. The smoke from the distant camp still curled into the sky, a black plume of proof. Zarn gave a slow nod. Then we'll mark you as MIA. No questions. Good, she said. Drelk finally found his voice. Why? She looked at him, not angry, not triumphant, just tired. Because they laughed, she said. They laugh at the camo, at the silence, at the preparation. But I learned to fight where it mattered, not in simulations, not on polished ships with perfect lighting. Here. She turned, and was already walking into the trees before he could reply. Wait, Zarn said. We might need you again. Kara paused, half swallowed by the jungle. Then follow the bodies, she said. And then she was gone. The squad stood in silence, the jungle pressing close, as if an acknowledgement. Somewhere far away, another scream echoed through the canopy, and Kara Rios hunted on,